Good morning, good morning. How you doing, everybody? Another hot one here coming today in Tokyo. Somebody's put a beer cup on our cone, I see. Does that reduce its magic power? I don't know. Somebody last night on his way back from the Hoppidori or something must have taken a beer and had no place to put it. There's no garbage cans out here at all. No garbage cans at all. John's on about the flashing lights again. I went back through like the last 10 streams and the flashing lights are there at the beginning of every stream. There was one of those 10 streams that it wasn't, and you can see that they've closed the shutter. There's a big shutter there at Don Quixote, and it's never closed because they're open 24 hours a day. And maybe it's closed on those few days a year or those few hours a year when they're doing some, overnight renovation. But now and then, they do close the shutter partway down, and like to help the air conditioning. So both the exit shutter and the entrance shutter, they sort of pull it down a bit from open to try and minimize the air in and out, to try and keep their air conditioning running. But yeah, those are the flashing lights. They go around, there's 3 or 4 patterns. They go around and around in a marching ants fashion. The department store AC, it still runs, absolutely. I've sort of got used to it. At nighttime, it runs all night long, off and on, off and on. It's endless. Someone says they see a new little flag waving down there. I don't know. I think that might be an awning, a rain awning on the... It is, right where the bicycle guys are now. That's the rain awning on the Chestnut restaurant on the right-hand side of the street. It's not a flag. The red maroon colored thing that looks like a flag down there. Top left corner, that flag is different. That's the kakigori. That's the shaved ice flag for the kakigori restaurant, for the oyster shack. They've got a shaved ice machine out on their balcony. They do every summer. Yeah. It's shaved ice. The red character is the character for ice. And every summer, the oyster shack puts a shaved ice machine on their patio. It's going to be a stinker today, another stinker. There is a typhoon on the way, another one. The previous typhoon has passed over Korea. It's gone. This is typhoon number 7. And it's a big one, but from the point of view of Japan, if it has to hit anywhere, this is where we would like it to hit. Honshu is going to get rain anyway. It'll pass across the middle of the country and head out into the open sea. This would miss the Kyushu area, which has been pounded too much, and this would miss the Tokyo area. Osaka would get wet. Okay, let's go. It'll be not such an interesting day of work today. We have been working on the carving of the rabbit block set. And actually, we finished the other block the other day, and my promise to you today, or my suggestion, was that we were going to be pasting down another one and carving another color block. Other stuff has come in the way. There are 3 jobs that have come up for priority. The rabbit is sleeping for a few days. It's okay, we have lots of time. That's due in September. We have a block set from Kawasaki-san. We'll open it later, but before that, here's show and tell. We'll talk about that later. We have some real nice prints today for show and tell. We have a package of prints that arrived yesterday. You know who these are from. This has already been opened. I wasn't here yesterday. I was over in the Ome workshop, and the people who were here didn't know, and they opened this. I discovered what it was and then left it on my desk. So this has been opened already, and we know who it's from, going by the wrapping. So you know what today's morning's work is going to be. It's going to be embossing, but on top of that interesting news, meaning not interesting news, there's double bad interesting news. It's embossing twice. These prints need to be embossed with 2 different embossments. So this is my work for the next few hours. There's 120 prints here. They need the name embossing, Kubota-san, because he never embosses his name. But they also need the title of the print to be embossed, because whoever sent him the blocks and sample print for this one forgot to include the title plate. So Kubota-san didn't do it. He would have done it if it had been in there, because that's part of the job. He refuses to put his name in because he thinks that's irrelevant. So somebody here screwed up, and as a result, I have to do that job here today. No, it's not a new carver printer combination. We have the plate here that says carved by Kawasaki, printed by Kubota. We've had that combination lots of times. That's here and ready. What is not ready is the title emboss plate. We had one. We've already done a bunch of the prints with it, but I can't find it upstairs. So maybe actually I did send it to him, but he can't find it. So somewhere along the line it's got lost. Luckily, we have an extra copy of the title. We always get these things in multiple copies. That's my job this morning. Paper is out today. 3 packs of paper is out today. Ishikawa-san is coming. She's working on the Yoshida boat, the daytime view. Who else is coming? Ayumi-san is back from summer holidays in Hokkaido. She is working on Ramen Cats today. It won't be finished today, but she is now in the home stretch and she will be crossing the finish line any day now. She then moves on to the misty day in Nikko. Are you listening, Taran? No. And then who's the third one? Yuki-san is here. She's doing the young girl in the bath, and then she'll be moving on to another batch of Patreon chibi prints, the creation of the great wave. So we are busy upstairs today. Yesterday, Sugi-san finished off a batch of prints, the one she's doing, it's Fox Moon. She finished off her final job here. She is coming today to clean up her workspace, so we don't really want to talk about this. Hokkaido would be for a winter holiday. No, 2 reasons. One is it's much cooler up there. People love to escape to Hokkaido in the summer. And second is that's her family home. She comes from Hokkaido, so she spent the summer back with her parents, took the grandchildren back for a family visit. Okay, let's get going. Enough talk. Let's get to work, because this is going to be a super priority. These prints are waiting. Plug it back in, Dave. Hey. Shh. Consumer products. Pro consumer products that are heavy on the consumer and light on the pro when it comes to the connections. Okay, I have to make an embossing plate here. Now we need a sacrifice print for this, so let's see if we've got a cut corner print. Oh, that can't send that. Yeah, he's got a few prints at the back here that are not good. They're sacrifice prints. So let's use one of these. We've got to get the location of this plate. So we simply put it onto, we put the plate itself low tack here. We put the plate face up in the location that we want it to appear on the print. And this is double-sided tape, all temporary. Let's go a bit higher. Then another row of tape. Do you remember we were doing the color separations for this print? So, this was a long time ago to show. There's a registration. We're going to do this upside down because there's no way I can fit it in here, and I'm not right-handed, so we're going to do this upside down. The print slides into the guide here. I can see with my left hand, my left where it's going to go. Hold it with my left hand and print it. So this is a little bit strange. It's upside down. But we do this. Actually, they do it all the time upstairs. And we now have bingo. Kiyomizu in summer. But we also have an unwanted straight line here. This is the edge of the plastic plate. And we certainly don't want that. And that's coming from the edge of the plate here. So let's get rid of it. The edge of the plastic plate. Let's bevel it all the way across. The bottom one is off the paper and the left one is off the paper. Now, do we have it square? Let's see. Upside down. Okay, there's one of the embossings. The other one will be the title, will be the printer's name over here. We haven't yet looked at the print. Let's have a peek at it. This is a batch, of course, from Kubota-san. 120 copies. I guess we haven't seen this one. It hasn't been announced. It's not supposed to be in public yet. Let's have a peek. This is not going to be one of my favorite prints in this series, but it does the job. And it's also, there's an Easter egg in here. It turns out that Jed put the pagoda in place, you know, for artistic reasons, not exactly, you know. He must have referred to photographs or sketches that he made when he was over there in Kiyomizu. He wanted to do it from the other way round, you know, backwards. And I think in real life, the pagoda isn't quite that high from this place. When you stand over at the opposite side of Kiyomizu-dera, looking back at the temple, there's a walking path over there. When you stand there, I think the pagoda is not really this high. So I think he took his artistic license, or whatever it's called, or angle of view, and he stretched the pagoda north. He put it up. But in reality, it's 1, 2, 3, and then it's the base. So it's a Sanju noto, and he's drawn sort of a Goju noto as though it was 5. 1, 2, 3. We can see the next row, 4 and 5. So he's changed it. And in real life, this section at the bottom is actually not here. This is different. So I think what he did was he took one of the roof levels, copied and pasted it in Photoshop, dropped it below to stretch this thing up. I'm not supposed to tell you these things, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. These are woodblock prints. These are not photographic replications of actual real locations. Well, I mean, this is a real location, but it's not supposed to be a documentary photograph of what the place looks like. Okay, let's get to work. Let's get to work. I've got to do this now. If you want interesting content, you'll have to poke me for it. Someone says, why don't we do the registration? Because of the fact that the lettering is on the right-hand side, why don't I key it to the other side? I can't do that because the prints themselves were made registered on this side of this corner. And they were not all cut to the same size. If we look at this stack of paper, well, they're sort of the same size, but they're not all really guaranteed to be the same size. We have to work from the registration corner. If I knew the paper were all exactly the same size, I could work from the other side back and put it over there. But we can't. And this is an unusual case for us where we have an embossing right bang up really close to the registration corner. And there's no way around it. The simplest way to do it is just simply what I'm doing here. Turn it upside down. Sure, we've got that accurate enough. Let's see. Yeah, that'll do it. It's this junction box. This is the video input. This is coming from the camera, and this is going to the computer. And one of these, it's the old USB thing, Stichel. Okay, there are a bunch of things I'm supposed to talk to you about today, or I'm supposed to mention. Information I got, links I got, stuff like that. What's our time? It's 8:25, almost a third of the way through already, my God. You had to refresh after that cable pull? Surely not. That's just the feed that we send. Twitch doesn't care what I send. I can unplug one camera. I can turn off cameras. I can turn things on and back on. It shouldn't affect the feed at that end whatsoever. My software here, OBS, is compositing a complete video feed and sending it out. I can't imagine you'd have to refresh just because one of the cameras went off and back on here. But what do I know? OBS doesn't like sudden input drops. I see. So OBS got confused for a second there, did it? Okay, that would make sense then. overall, I am very, very happy with this software, this OBS. It's free stuff. I haven't paid for it. I don't know if I should be donating to one of those causes or something. I don't know, but it's fabulous stuff. There's sort of issues with it. It does some things that we don't like or people don't like, but overall, my God, it's a professional broadcast software, And it costs nothing. I'm super happy it's there. My God. I get why people work on projects like that. And if I was at a different stage of life and had different time available and was working for a company and had an IT job that left me with time, I could see working on projects like that because it would be really satisfying. But I'm very, very happy it's there. Maybe I should be donating. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it. Same as everybody else, You just download these things, give it a try, and then you just go run. You run with it, and you never look back, Except to complain when something goes wrong. I know the news that I was on my list of news. There's a couple of things on my news list, and one was I got a link this morning from Mafalda-san. You remember Mafalda-san? She's the ink painting lady who was here from Switzerland, who was here a couple of months ago. She sat in on the stream one day. She comes to Japan every year, a couple times a year sometimes, to study ink painting and have her paintings in exhibitions here. She sent me a link this morning that's super interesting, but I'm not sure if it's okay to share with you. Mafalda-san, are you here today? Are you sitting in? That link, the question for you is, that link you sent me, is that something you've logged in and you got permission to download that file and you sent it to me? Or is that an open link for anybody to click? Because I thought they were going to sell that book. And this is a download link for a 300 plus page PDF book. But I don't know if it's an open link to publish. So hang on for a minute. I sent the link to the tell you what, okay, you can search here. If I give you the title of the book, okay, Mafalda-san's not here. Okay, you guys can do the search for me. Over at the British Museum website, they've been doing research for a few years on a specific project. I think this started in 2019. They had a Hokusai research project going on. Here's the title exactly, Late Hokusai Society, Thought, Technique, Legacy. They've had an all hands on deck multidisciplinary study going on in Hokusai. They started this in 2019 with the idea of publishing a book in 2023. I got the link today to a PDF version of the book, which links to the British Museum website's download section. But as I said, I don't know if it's an open public link. So head over to the British Museum website. Yeah, John's got the link to the Hokusai picture book. This is different, John. This is an actual research project being done by the British Museum with the idea of publishing a book. The book is ready and it's in their download section, but can I share the link? I don't know. So let me give you a few minutes to hunt around for this. Another link to it, and this is, 1 second here, if I can. One sec, there's another place that might have an active link to this. One moment, please. Just a second. It's worth spending time on this because this is a big deal. This is a stunning, interesting amount of okay, it's a place called the Sainsbury Institute, and they have a summer newsletter, and it links to that project. Here again, I'm sorry, I didn't have all these links prepared. This is a place here. Look at this one, Sainsbury Institute. Look for their summer newsletter, and there's a link in there that goes to the British Museum's page on this project. So we don't know if it's open. So I better not share the open link. I'm sorry, I've got to be cool about this. The British Museum's fair with me on the projects we're doing together. We'll leave it there for the moment. If somebody can find an open link, okay. But if it's a thing that they're selling, then I can't really share you the full link to the PDF. Of course, I can't do that. Maybe it's for British Museum members or something like this. I don't know. I'd better be cool with this. Okay, so there's a link to the project page at the British Museum. What if you just search for it on the British Museum website? Search for the name of the book and then downloads or something. That page has a link to the full thing. Well, if it does, go ahead and post it. If it's on the British Museum's website, an open download link, then go ahead. Maybe they've decided to publish it openly. That's not the full thing. I see. Okay. Let's do this a different way. Nobody can see anything, so let's put it at least where we can. Let's try and arrange this so that at least you can see something while I'm working here today. How about if we do it like this? If I position it like this, at least we can see the print. Well, somebody's got it. 304 pages seems like the full thing. That's the full thing. Okay, you're up and running. I'm not pirating anything here. It's an open link on the British Museum's website. Is it? If we're good to go, we're good to go. I don't know how much of the content of that book is of interest to the general reader. I don't know. I know that one of the chapters in there, which is the reason Mafalda-san sent it to me, one of the chapters is by Kapusine-san, you know, the lady from the British Museum who was here. We did a Twitch stream together, I don't even know, a couple months back, whatever, I don't know. And she has a chapter in there, of course, talking about her research on the Great Wave. And there's another chapter I see. I haven't read any of this yet. I heard about this just before the stream started this morning. I see another chapter in there about reproductions on a Meiji era or Edo era reproductions of Hokusai prints. And that sounds super interesting. I guess they're going to talk about Takamizawa, the forgeries that they did and stuff. So I'm looking forward to reading that myself. Ton of information there. But the book as a whole maybe is kind of esoteric for most of us. I don't know. We'll see. Any information is good information, kind of. These prints, there's people waiting right now for these prints. Yesterday was the 11th of the month, and Ayano-san is not here, but I'm doing her work as a substitute. And she left a series of pre-timed automated emails. Now, she's off gallivanting around Wales right now, but I got an email from her last night, and it was obviously clearly a pre-timed email that said, Dave, good afternoon. I'm on holiday, but here it is to remind you. This was like yesterday afternoon, 3 o'clock. Please don't forget to do the 11th of the month subscription billing today. And it's like getting one of these emails from a ghost from the past or something. I know it's not her, but it is her. It's her voice that says, hi, Dave, how are you this afternoon? And she's speaking from the past when she pre-programmed these mails. So I'm not complaining about this whatsoever. I am very, very, very happy. I had made my little list of stuff I was supposed to do while she was away, but yesterday was kind of a crazy busy day in Ome, and I totally did not think about doing that subscription billing. So when I got that email from her around 3 o'clock, I'm like, it just showed up, and I'm like, Ayano? My first thought was there's something wrong. There's a panic. There's an earthquake in Wales or something, whatever. And then here it is. It's, hi, Dave. So whatever, I did the work, and she had really prepared well. When we send those subscription billings on the 1st, the 11th, and the 21st, our own system sends out the emails giving people the link to find their invoice. But because it's just Mokuhankan sending emails, a lot of it gets trapped in spam filters. So what we do is we send the emails twice. We send it once from our own system, and then we send it through the MailChimp thing, which is much, much better at sending emails to get through spam filters. They are professionals at it. So Ayano-san had given me a full set of instructions how to do this, how to do our own billing, which I know because I wrote the software, and then how to do the MailChimp extra email link. And she gave me a complete guided set of instructions in the email how to do this. So I am so happy. She's actually just protecting herself, because if I screw it up and it doesn't get done, a lot of people don't pay for it. Her work stacks up when she gets back. So this is for her a self-defense move, but she really, really helped me. So now I'm waiting. It's the 12th. Am I going to get another email on Monday from her saying, now 4 days have passed, please update such and such? So there's probably a whole program set of emails ready to pounce for the next 2 weeks. I have mixed feelings. I'm glad she did this. I'm happy. But now I'm sort of sitting here waiting for the next shoe to drop. I'm being watched. I'm being hunted. If she had really been on it, she would have an email that drops here at 9 o'clock or something. Ding, Ayano's here, whatever. Someone says, how about a full month's pay extra? She was in the bonus pool, of course, yesterday. Friday, what was it? She was in the bonus pool. I'm not going to talk details about what everybody got, but absolutely she was in the bonus pool. Everybody is. That's how we did it, everybody. Except me. I'm not legally permitted to get bonuses, nor should I, of course. I own the place, so whatever money is left over is theoretically mine, even though I can't actually touch it. As an executive of the company, what they call a daihyo, I am not allowed to get such things. You can't just dip yourself into the cash. You got your stock certificate. Share certificate, sir, please. It's not stocks, it's a share. I don't know your name. I'm sorry. French Toast. I have no idea who you are. I'm sorry. But thank you very much for that support. It really is appreciated, you know. Hontony. It's not saving our life right now. The last couple of years, it saved our lives. It just saved our bacon, paid our rent all the way through that disaster. Right now we're okay. We're actually profitable, in quotes. But thank you very much for that support. It's really making things easy here. I wouldn't call myself a developer, my God, no. I mean, I write the software for our system here. What does developer mean? I don't know. I think of myself as the IT guy here, whatever. You know, we need software to run everything from the shopping cart right through everything, inventory and printing control, right through to the shipping. And I've done all that. Does that mean I'm a developer? I don't know. I guess so. I've developed the whole system and then right through to coding, you know. And I had, speaking of those systems, you know, we had an emergency on, was it Wednesday? Could have been Wednesday, I don't remember. We have Ome workshop there. And in the Ome workshop, they need to print the title labels that go on the prints in our shop. I don't have one handy. If you've bought a print in our shop, you know that the packaging is there and we have a certain type of title label that goes on it. And we've been using the font called Technical for this job. And years and years and years ago, before we were using an online, you know, manager system, whatever, I wrote a program for our Apple computer out there, our Mac computer, that would print these labels. We had no manager system, no online database, anything. I just made a simple computer program that would print the labels. And I used an old platform that was used, oh my God, how old is it? It was called Real Basic. I don't even know, they're probably gone decades ago. It was the Apple equivalent of Virtual Basic in the Windows world. It was a way to do a quick and dirty job, to run up a piece of software for your machine that would do a job. So one day I ran up something in Real Basic that would do those label printing. And you know the rest of the story. It's been in use for the past 20 years. It's just one of those legacy pieces of software that you don't replace because it just works really well. Anyway, long story short, the computer, the Mac we were using over in Ome finally died. And it's an old machine. It was running like Sierra or High Sierra or something, the 16-bit era stuff. We got the new computer to run, and of course, that old Real Basic software, which is built on an ancient framework, doesn't run anymore. It won't open, it won't do anything. So all of a sudden, our old legacy label software printing doesn't work. This was Wednesday night, we found out about this. So Dave now has to quickly build a new piece of software to do this label printing. And of course, the only way to do that with any sense is to create PDF files. So I had to run up a new module in our manager system that will create PDF files for all these labels. It will take the input, which print do you want, what carver, what printer, blah, 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 and print the label. So I ran that up on Thursday night, Thursday night, and went out there to Ome to install it and test it and set it up. But the other side of the problem, and you know what's going to happen here, is that's a brand new Mac that was delivered to Ome and running. It's running Ventura, and none of the printers, I don't mean this kind of printer, I mean the printing inkjet printers and laser printers, of course. Some of those are ancient, and some of them wouldn't work with the new Mac. So I spent all of Friday trying to get printer drivers to work on this new Mac. And I got 3 of them up and running, but the 4th one is history, and we're going to have to get rid of it. The address label printer will not work on a new Mac. So that was my Friday, wrestling with printer drivers. So I'm saying virtual machine. I know at some point, how hard do you work to keep your legacy software running? I could have done that. I could have gotten a new Mac. I could have found something. I probably could have got Parallels running and did it in Windows or something like this and then ran it in Virtual Basic. I don't know. But at some point, you got to cut and run. There's no requirement to keep that 20-year-old module running. It was easier just finally to bite the bullet and write a new module, incorporate it into our current system. Someone's doing the same thing. Got your new Mac Studio and getting your old stuff running all week. Yep. It's technical debt to show, you know, the experience, the expression. We've talked about this many, many times. I really, I'm cognizant of our technical debt here. I know how much debt we have. I've got a list of the things that need updating and need replacing. And I'm trying as much as possible not to let the amount of technical debt get too far out of hand. And this is just one example of something that is now removed from that column and incorporated into our modern system and should run for another couple of decades. So I can't say it's under control because we still do have some important modules that really have too much of that debt, if that's the way you can explain it. We're not 100% clear of it, but I'm pretty good. I'm on top of it. In fact, that was the number one, the top item on my list of in the technical debt section of our wiki pages. You know. What programming language do I use? These days, I don't use a language. Well, it's PHP. Our manager system here, the system that runs our shopping cart right through to the shipping, doing the post office API connections. We're using a standard LAMP stack stuff. It's just straight LAMP stack. We have a shared host server over in America, which is running a Linux OS. And on top of that, it's the usual setup. There's an Apache server there that we don't have anything to do with. They keep it up and running. And then on top of that, I just use PHP modules and a MySQL database. It's the system that everybody loves to criticize, but hontoni, it works like a charm. It's secure, it's safe, and it's easy to work with. I don't really get it. For some reason, PHP is the language that hugely gets dissed, a lot of disrespect. But for me, it's a tool that really does the job. We're not running assembly anymore, nothing. There was assembly code running, but no longer anymore, now that we're not using any code running directly on OS X here. The downside, though, to the PHP thing, you know, for the rest of you who don't do programming, it probably means nothing, but the people out there who do understand programming and stuff in PHP, there's a guilty confession to make. And anybody who hears this, who does understand the language, will realize instantly how much of a hacker I am and not a conversant programmer. I've never been to college and taken, computer science courses and stuff like that. I'm not at that level of understanding here. I'm more of a self-taught hacker. So when I'm using PHP there's sort of two main modes to use it and to build programs. One is in an object-oriented kind of method, and the other is, I think they call it procedural code, the way you put the actual code on the page. And I'm a procedural guy, which, computer science people will now at that point roll their eyes. And that's fine. There's stuff I can prioritize and stuff I can't prioritize. And the code we write is well documented, clearly understandable. And if somebody else does have to come in here and take over from me, it will be, I feel, much more easier to understand being written in that kind of a mode. But whatever. Did I see the photos that the lander sent back before smacking into the moon? Is this something new that has come up? I mean, I was on top of all their news a few weeks ago. If there's something new the last couple of days that I haven't seen, no, I haven't seen that. But I have been I'm on the iSpace news feed. I check it every couple of days. So I'm not sure if you've got new photos. I haven't seen them, but I will check as soon as the stream is over here. And I didn't hear back from iSpace. I sent them that fan letter. Was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? I sent the fan letter in the print and didn't hear back from them. Didn't really expect to, of course. They are busy people. And I don't think we'll ever hear. But it was a shot in the dark. A very, very tiny shot in the dark. A very tiny shot in a very big dark. Watching your videos for about 10 years, never made it to a stream. Welcome back. This is really the most boring stream we have done in ages. I'm really sorry. As I was saying, I got sidetracked. The 11th yesterday. Morning. 紙出しましたよ。石川さん、ちょっと見て。久保田さんから届きましたよ。ちょっと見て。Come say hello. Just peek it just a little bit. Here you are. This is Ishikawa-san, ready to printing upstairs. Ishikawa Yoko-san. So you're printing right now the Yoshida Hiroshi print, でしょ? So. But this one right now, these prints are back from Kubota-san. But before we sent it to Kubota-san, we had to do test printing here. And guess who did the test printing? So. Came out okay, でしょ? We really, I say we, she, and then we really struggled with this one. Trying to decide what is the print about. Is this print about the temple? Is it about the greenery? Is it about the pagoda, the people? And the sample we got from Jed, he decided to make it about the greenery. The greenery was deep and rich and the focus, and the other things were sort of didn't balance with them. So we really struggled to do that because the greenery itself wasn't interesting enough. So what we did was we put the greenery more into the background. We took away the strong lines to show. On the test, there was a really strong line around all the different parts of the greenery, and it just looked really strange.
紙も問題ない？動作引いたんですよね、私ね、これ。
あ、そうですか。
そうだよ。
Oh, look at this.
ね、
She's not 100% Japanese. She would never have been able to say this. She says, don't forget to tell them that I did the dosa on this. She did the sizing on this. In fact, on the stream show,
そうやったやつ。
that was the day. Okay, on the stream we did this, and I was standing there watching, and people are giving me trouble because I was criticizing her and talking too much. I didn't realize that. This is the same paper coming back.
夏はいいですね。私でもできる。
This is the sizing she did. It's okay. It's all right. Look at this. I didn't put two and two together. Soka.
そう。よかった。
Next challenge, December sizing.
そう。いや、それはな。はい。
All right, thank you. Jen, instead of a visit from Aona-san, we have a visit from Ishikawa-san. Okay, see you later. Okay. I hadn't realized that. It's a perfect story. It's the same paper coming back to our bench. I didn't know that. Just too much stuff to keep track of. But yeah, we think, you know, I said, I'm not trying to diss Jed here, because when Jed does it in his Photoshop, it's click, click, draw, draw, and they come out in the Photoshop, everything is the same richness, everything has the same depth, everything has the same light level, everything is the same. I know, for example, if I show, I'll do a quick link. The box we've got here, there's a box that was on the desk. What have I done with it? Oh, here, it's the one I had. The box is the key block for the next print in this series. And I have to, today over the weekend, I have to do the color separation work. And what I have from Jed is this. This is top secret, but whatever, this is what these streams are for. Here is Jed's Photoshop printout. Not a woodblock print. Here's Jed's Photoshop printout of the next design. And everything is clean, everything is flat, everything is smooth, and even the lights and darks and everything have the same kind of depth. And that's not how it works when we make a woodblock print. So doing the color separations, for example, there's a gray on the steps and there's a darker gray on the steps. Then inside the tree, there's a base red on the tree, then there's a gray tone and a darker gray tone. And in Jed's version, it's the same gray. The gray that is just behind the woman on the wall and the gray on top of the red inside the tree. For Jed, it's one click. We can't do that. If we do it one click, if we make it dark enough to show in the tree, the wall will be black. If we make it light enough to make a light gray wall, it won't even show inside the tree. So the Photoshop click, 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 add layers has almost nothing to do with the real world of making a woodblock print. And that was what we struggled with. I did a sort of color separation that I thought would work. Ishikawa-san and then also Ayumi-san did a bunch of test printing upstairs to try and figure out how to make it work. We sent a test print to Kubota-san, and this is the next batch that came back because of that. It's a long, long process, none of which is straight through. Jed gives us the concept. Of course, he gives us a wonderful concept, but making it happen in paper, my God, it's a whole different story. And if there's printmakers here, Karen, for example, I don't know if she's here today, she can tell you this. You know, the concept is one thing, but making it actually happen when you layer, 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 layer on paper, it's a whole different story. And this is our secret sauce. And he can use opaque, he can use multiply, he can use diffuse, you know, there's all ways to make Photoshop layers stack up, but none of them, of course, actually give a real, the way that it works in paper. And that gray was one good example. Dark enough to work inside the tree is too dark as a shadow out in the open sunshine. The point being, no matter what he does in Photoshop to make that happen, we can't do those on one block. That gray block for the wall is going to have to be a different gray block from the one inside the tree. So even if he manipulated his multiply layers in Photoshop to make it happen, it still doesn't work for us. Because a gray tint over white and the same gray tint over green and the same gray tint over brown behave differently. Anyway. Yeah, we're getting interesting effects here to show. This 4, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's reflecting from the 4. I have a flood shining at me right now with 4 lights. That's shining through the vial, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. What you're seeing there is my floodlight that's shining at me right now, coming through the vial. Look at this, I'm around halfway through. Sorry about this, it is what it is. And I think there was a conversation that again got sidetracked. Ayano-san sent me that message yesterday. I followed her instructions. I sent out the billing for the subscription series for the ones on the 11th, which is what this batch of prints is. This is the 11th and 21st. So the people who got that email from us yesterday, lots of them have been paying, and this is your print. It will be on the way Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Of course, over the weekend, I have to get these done now. I've got to get this finished. I've got to put the other embossing. I have to trim them to the right size, then send them to Ome. Ome is ready. The story sheets are already done. The story sheets are folded. The address labels are printed out. The envelopes are ready. They will mount the prints into those folders and get them on the way. I can't say Monday for sure because I'm not really sure. But Monday and or Tuesday, these things will be flying out and around the world. Oops, upside down. Dave, be careful. In my list of things I'm supposed to mention here today, I have another update to the statistics. Do we have a stats corner, an official stats corner? As many of you now know, repeat viewers know, last June, the end of June, was the end of our financial year. And lots of statistics are coming through from this. We've got a pretty good system which chews through data. We have big data now because everything we do is in quite a substantial database. And I'm learning bit by bit by bit how to mine this data, how to look at it and understand how our business is doing. And one of the most simple statistics we get from our business is simple revenue. I mean, that's obviously one of the core metrics of how you are doing. And the pandemic really put a wrench into that. And we had years and years of steady progress, steady progress, steady progress. Then the pandemic came along and blew things up, and here we are again. And I've got a snapshot graph for you here today. The graph I'm about to show you is 3 and 3. And it's 2019 data, the first full year before pandemic. So it's how we were doing before the world changed. And then the bottom row is the current year, 2023. We're not finished yet, so all you can see there, it's going to be the first 7 months data. The rest will be blank. But you can see how our life before the pandemic is compared with the pandemic now. So let's have a quick snapshot of this. And what you're seeing, it's in 3 groups. The left-hand group, purple, is the Asakusa shop revenue. The middle group, the green group, is orders online through our shopping cart. The far right-hand group, the yellowish tone, is subscription prints. And again, the top one is the pandemic previous year, and the bottom one is the current year. Later we'll look at ones that show partial data. The ones missing from here in between show no purple whatsoever because the shop was closed. As you can see, Asakusa has come back with a massive bang. Now, what we don't know is if this is revenge travel, as they're calling it, or if this is the new normal. If it's the new normal, we're sort of in trouble because we can't make prints at this rate. I'll show you another stat later on in this series that shows our inventory over the past half a year on a dramatic decline. We are literally running out of prints. The prints you're seeing today here, they're already sold. They're not coming into inventory. They're coming in and disappearing the same day. So our inventory is decreasing. Now, if it turns out that this is revenge travel and it's going to slip back from this next year, then we will be okay. The sales will decline, but we won't have too much stress on our staff. John keeps mentioning these figures. The membership, John's talking about membership. He's talking about a Japan Travel Group membership, and it's climbing all the time. The figures you see on the bottom for August. This is as of last night. This graph is data from last night. So what you see as August on the bottom row is up to last night. That's why the subscriptions, it's only 1/3. We do billing on the 1st, 11th, and 12th. But yes, it is looking good. It's looking good. Oh, it's Sadako-san, 9 o'clock, 9:06. Soka, instead of Ayano, we get a Sadako visit. How are the trains? Crowded today or not so bad?
No.
Not at all. Good. Good. Someone says, what causes an increase around April? There's this thing called cherry blossoms. Japanese tourism works on a camel shape. There's 2 bumps. Maybe tourism around the world, I have no idea. But specifically, tourism to this country works as a camel. Winter is what it is, it's too cold. Spring hits, the cherry blossoms, Mount Fuji, nice weather. And then summer is pretty hot and pretty rainy, it slumps back down. Then autumn again, maple leaves and nice travel and nice weather. And then back for the winter. So this may be a global kind of thing, I don't know. But certainly here in Japan, we have X, up for the spring, down for the summer, up for the fall, down for the winter. That's the standard pattern. Again, just to pop it up once more. The pattern you see in 2019, it's there. It's spring and fall. The green pattern is different. It starts to pop up around October, November, because that's people buying gifts and stuff. We do have a show and tell today. We have a show and tell of the more traditional type today. The last few show and tells have been something a bit strange. We have a standard classic show and tell today. I was in Ome on Friday, and I remembered before coming back Friday night, last night, to go to the bookshelves, look through and grab something for today's show and tell. There is still a whole bunch of stuff out in Ome. Not all of our collection is located here in Asakusa. And the fun part about those is I grab these things off the shelf, and because I've been living here in Asakusa now since 2014, my home in Ome is a place I only visit now and then, I'm no longer really familiar with what's on those shelves. And the one I picked up yesterday, oh, I don't remember this. It looks kind of nice. So I'm discovering a lot of these things for such a long time, it's almost like the first time. I shall pop you a link then. Here's an advanced link to a story, a famous old Japanese story. See if I can get this here. This is a Wikipedia page to an old Japanese, I was going to say legend. It's a historical episode / legend. You know, it's not this one, but you know the old 47 Ronin story. There was a historical episode at some point, and then over the years it got embellished. It went to Kabuki stage, it got embellished even more. They made movies about it. And what's actually real in the story and what is legend is now pretty much totally unknown. And the Soga Monogatari, the story of the Soga brothers, is one such story. I guess there was some kind of original historical episode. A warrior killed another warrior. The 2 sons, the infant sons of the man who was killed, decided that they would, grow up to be warriors and avenge their father. I could understand that maybe was a thing that might have happened at some point. The rest of it, how much is real, I have no idea. So what we have today in the show and tell is a series of prints illustrating the Soga Monogatari. doing this upside down like this. I guess it's funny, somebody in the future, whatever, seeing this clip will think, oh my God, Dave in his Mokuhankan studio, did they do their printing upside down? I mean, if anybody's just coming along here today for the first time, normally, of course, we do our printing with the registration mark in the right-hand corner. But because I'm left-handed and because the object we are printing is in the right corner, I cannot pin it with my right hand and print it in the same way. So today we're doing a little bit of a bastardization. I'm flipping it around. There's no pigments, there's no brushes, it's all dry. Simply putting it in upside down because I am a left-handed printer. If this was being done by a right-handed printer, a classical right-handed printer, they would leave it this way. They would probably, how would they do that? They would put it in like this, they would pin with their left hand, and they would print with their right hand. But Dave here is putting it in upside down. And that reminds me, Walter Phillips, the Canadian printmaker, he's long dead. He died in the 1960s, I believe. He worked through the early part of the 20th century. And through the middle of the 20th century. He learned from Urishibara-san in London, and then being a Canadian boy, whatever, trying to figure things out, he had his own way of doing things. And he describes in his book, he wrote a very, very interesting book about woodblock printmaking, which I'm not allowed to publish because it's still under copyright protection, but it is on the net somewhere if you look it up. He talked about an episode where he was having trouble getting the paper laid down, he couldn't figure it out, so he held the paper, and he describes this. He held it in his mouth, lightly, and then did the printing. So he used a 3-point touch. He used his mouth and 2 hands to get it into the registration marks, which were backwards like this. He sort of laid it in and laid it with his mouth. He describes doing it this way. He must have been a fun character, you know. He was British, then Canadian, which is my background as well. And when you do that, you have this healthy dose of self-deprecation, you know. He knew he was good at it, so he was able to laugh about himself in the same way that we do here. There's enough confidence inside what you're doing that you're allowed to show stupid things or mistakes that you made. There's enough confidence, balance, equity in your account that you can do this to yourself. He would have been a fun person to know, I'm sure. I don't think you leave too much spit on the paper, but whatever. You don't have to swallow. He would have been fun, I think, you know. He had a hard go of it. He was trying to make a living as a printmaker through the first half of the 20th century. And we're talking about through the years of the Depression. And he lived in Winnipeg. So you're a woodblock printmaker living in Winnipeg, Canada, in the middle of the Great Depression, trying to find customers and make a living. And he had kids, 2, 3 kids. But he did it. He did it. Show and tell. Okay. We interrupt this program. We interrupt this program. Drop them on the floor. Not. Okay, here we go. Let's make this a bit smaller. It's not a massively large object we're looking at today. It will fit on the desk here. As I said, I found this in my Ome bookshelves yesterday. What did I do with it? Here we are. It's from the Taisho era. What it is the print designs you're about to see are by Hiroshige. And the designs would have been originally made back in the 1840s or 1850s. Somebody can look it up. And in fact, I've got another link here. I did prepare a bit. Here's a link on the Hiroshige database website to the original Hiroshige prints. Here we are. And that maybe has a date for when the original prints were made. What we're about to see is a Taisho era reproduction set. And it's still the time when they were writing backwards. And it's Soga Monogatari, Ando Hiroshige ga, and Zen Isatsu. So the story is the Soga brothers, the story of the Soga brothers, and the designer is Ando Hiroshige. He's the designer, and it's all in one volume. And it's a Taisho era reproduction. And I didn't remember this, but there it is. This is what was on display in the bookstore. And Dave must have bought this, and I don't know when. This would have been back when I was buying prints from Harashobo. Excellent place to go shopping. And there it is. Hiroshige Pictures, Soga Monogatari, Taisho 6 edition. And I paid 13,000 yen for it, which actually back then was, you know, pretty good. So this must have been after my kids left, because there's no way I could have afforded to buy this if my kids had still been living with me. And it is for now, it is a pretty good price, because this is a beautifully produced book. Let's jump to the colophon so we can get some information here. The book itself, I've got to be careful because it doesn't open really well. The content of the book is printed in metal type. The colophon here and the pages you're going to see that have the story, this is metal type. This is not a 100% woodblock book. This is Taisho 6, the publisher's information. But what they did was they took the series of Hiroshige prints. There were 30 prints in the original Hiroshige set, and they shrunk them down to this size. And the original prints, if you follow that link that I gave you, Nakasawa-san, good morning. The original prints had very, very tiny detailed carving text in the sky area that told the story of the Soga brothers episodes. This reproduction print, and these are woodblock prints, they're made 2 prints at a time. These reproduction prints, they took out all the carving of the story and they made a modern language Japanese version of the story. So for this book, people read the story here in a full version and they see each picture. But the Hiroshige version had tiny, tiny text, very difficult to read, hentai gana, of the story. So these guys did something really, really sensible. It wasn't necessary to read that, they made it readable. And they also included what's called ruby or furigana, so that anybody, even a young kid who hadn't yet learned all the kanji, could read these things. And for people like me, who can't read all the kanji at all, having the reading right there on every column, it's such and such a big deal. It's wonderful. Anyway, the prints themselves. These are Taisho reproductions of the original Hiroshige designs, and they've done a kind of a nice job of doing this. This is an era when there were still good craftsmen around, still working to a high quality, not like the prints we saw the other day, of which we will not talk anymore. And this is not the best printing and carving that was ever done on the planet, but it is serviceable, nice printing that will tell the story. And I have no idea. I linked to you the Wikipedia page there that outlined the Soga brothers episode historically, but this is a massive 30 print book, and the story has been embroidered and embroidered and embroidered to a very, very large extent. Almost all of this now will be imaginary. Very little of it will be historical. So somebody's saying they've left in the word balloon. It's a cloud. You know, if they had taken this out, they would have had to redraw and make something balanced, and the prints would have looked funny. So it was easier for them just to leave the balloon in, and it just looks like a cloud. It was a standard way of drawing things anywhere. When you looked at Byobu paintings, lots of them had a cloud at the top, cloud at the bottom, so they didn't have to worry about perspectives. So here's the construction of the book. Alternate pages are woodblock prints. This is, of course, one woodblock print folded in half. The next page is the metal type page folded in half. The next page is a woodblock print folded in half. So it makes a really, really, really good way. This one has the story on the right. The next one, of course, has the story on the left. There are 15 double prints in here, 30 individual prints altogether. We've had some of these prints in our flea market because the copies of this book have been chopped up over the years, and individual prints do come to light. So the 2 images would have been on one block. Yes, the wood block, again, it's hard to show you without destroying the book. the two prints here are on one piece of paper. That would have been one woodblock print that wasn't chopped up after it was made. It was folded in half after it was made and then sewn into the book. And then the metal type page, the same thing. These are printed as one sheet of paper, the two stories. So very, very easy construction. Very, very, very easy. These will be the two brothers, of course. There's no way I know enough of the story to be able to tell you what's going on. A little bit of misregistration here. Nothing to bring it to your attention as a haul of shame like I did yesterday. These are okay. And these prints, we almost never see them in book form now. We see them chopped up. Actually, before this stream today, I Googled for this book, and I found 2 copies for sale. I found one copy in a bookshop in Italy at a very reasonable price, and another copy in some other bookshop at a not reasonable price. So if you Google this, if you Google Soga Brothers Hiroshige Taisho, you'll find 2 copies out there. And if you can read Italian, and if it's not an outdated website, there is a copy for sale somewhere in Italy at a very, very, very reasonable price. So I'm saying, would the metal type be assembled from individual characters? This is katsuji. This is type where somebody has gone to a big case and pulled out one by one by one by one by one and laid them out. Absolutely. This is Taisho 6. There's no way this is not a linotype machine. Absolutely not. This is individual handset type. Everybody's labeled. There's names. Each time we see a person in these things, they are labeled. Everybody has their name attached to them. And again, a little bit of misregistration here. Take a look at this. Again, the misregistration is on along the wood grain. Remember, this print was not made. This print was not made this way in the registration marks. This was a wide print, 2 pages. So the wood block would have been a long wood block, and any expansion contraction is this way. So when we see misregistration, we see misregistration like here on the veranda railing. We see misregistration this way. We will almost never see it this way because that's the length of the piece of wood. Nakazawa-san, do you know the Soga Monogatari?
Soba?
Soga.
Oh.
Mukashi no Soga Monogatari.
I don't know the
details.
content, but I know the name.
Yeah, this. So, same as me. We all know the name, but we don't know the details exactly. So.
Yeah.
These will be the 2 brothers, and I can take a guess here. The 2 brothers are growing up. They know they've decided to avenge their father, and they do all kinds of exercises to strengthen themselves. So they're climbing in the mountains, throwing around boulders. They are building their bodies, training. There's one famous picture where they use their swords to cut through snowmen. They are practicing. So these 2 boys build up their skills bit by bit, ready for the moment when they can avenge their father. That's all I really know about this story. But this is a wonderful little production. Beautiful, beautiful production. The prints are attractively made. It's not a common style for Hiroshige. Hiroshige, of course, is famous to us as a landscape artist. There's very little of his of portraits and stuff. Almost no bijinga. There are a few, but almost none. So for him, probably if you analyzed it, the better pictures in this book are the ones that have lots of landscape, because that's what he was good at, and he could stick a figure in there. The ones like this, where there's no landscape and it's just figures, these are sort of less artistic, more formulaic. And there's nothing even, if you had showed me this and said who designed it, I would never, ever have guessed Hiroshige. It's not his specific style, it's not his genre. I would never have guessed it. It's there, his name is on there, Hiroshige ga. But it's not his main genre. And someone's talking about the green. Yes, this is Taisho era coloring. This is not traditional Edo coloring. This is Taisho era. The black is rich black, way blacker than I would like. The colors are bolder than I would like. It's a genre all of its own. Do you know the Sadako, the Soga Monogatari Sadako?
Yeah, I heard the story,
Named
but
Jin,
I don't
yeah,
know.
no, to tell all the details. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's part of Japanese culture. Everybody knows about it, but nobody knows all the details. And it changes every version anyway. But the book overall is a beautiful production. I got the day I picked it up in Harashobo, I must have bought it about 20 years ago, and for 13,000 for me 20 years ago, that would have been a pretty fair investment, you know. I didn't have the collection at that point. I didn't know I was going to be building a good collection of prints. I'm not quite sure why I would have picked this one up. It was pretty expensive. And maybe I was thinking that I would be able to mine it, that I would be able to use one of these illustrations for my Surimono albums. Perhaps that's what I was thinking about that day. But I don't really know. And it's been sleeping in the bookshelf in Ome all this time. It's 15 years since I've seen this thing, easily 15 years. And again, it's the thing, we talked about this before, you know, there are 30 beautiful woodblock prints here from Taisho 6. What year was Taisho 6? That's going to be somewhere around 1912, is it? Somewhere there? No. 1914, somewhere around there? Did somebody tell us already? 1917. So if I took this book and we took our scissors, we are not going to do this, but if I took our scissors to this book, cut each page out, put them in our flea market, a 1917 woodblock print of this quality, we could, I don't know, Hiroshige, this famous story, we could put whatever, $100 on it. There's 30 prints here. So we could make some bacon with this, but it would mean destroying the book. So of course we don't do that. There's no way. This book is now safe as long as our collection is safe. Someone says, have you ever bought something you wanted, didn't realize you already had? Not really. I know we're in a situation these days where we're buying for two reasons. For the collection myself, Dave uses his own salary. We don't use Mokuhankan funds. When we buy something for our flea market, of course, we use Mokuhankan funds, and we have no problem with buying more than one copy of the same thing. It's for our shop. We need to sell prints in the shop. So if it turned out, for example, if this had come up on Yahoo Auction last week, and if I hadn't remembered that I had this, and if I had bought it, then there's no problem. We just turn it over to Mokuhankan, the book goes into the shop, and away we go. So these days, there isn't such a problem. Page after page after page, 30 prints. It would be fun to read this, you know, slowly read the story. And one day we'll get it online, we'll get these scanned. And we'll scan both. We'll scan the prints and the story. And maybe this is something we could use an OCR machine to get the Japanese from. Yeah, we also do the doubles and keep the better one. We also do that. Jack Hillier was famous for that. Jack Hillier, he's long gone now. He had a wonderful, glorious, world-class collection of Hokusai books. And he was famous for this. He had the book already, but when another copy came up at an auction or a bookstore, he would compare, buy the better one and sell off the older one. So at the end of the day, his collection, which went to the British Museum, was absolutely, stunningly world-class. The best possible example of everything, all of Hokusai's illustrated books. I have no idea about the story, sir. I'm sorry. I can't tell you any information on what's going on with each of these prints. The real story itself, I know, doesn't sort of end well. I mean, the Wikipedia page that I linked to you, the two boys, their father was killed. They did manage to avenge him, but in the process they died. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of revenge stories at all. I don't like the concept. I don't like the idea. Our modern society, of course, a rule of law society does not work on revenge, and I would much rather live in a rule of law society. So these old tales of revenge really don't float my boat. I'm here for the woodblock prints, not for the philosophy. But what a production. My God, what a production. 30 prints. I think that's the end of it. Oh, more still to come. So, story hour with Ayano-san sitting by the fireside and reading to us, along with a simultaneous translation at the bottom. That would be cool videos, you know. There's so many things we could do with this. You could do some episodes. You wouldn't do all 30 at once, but you could do this episode by episode. It would make a wonderful, wonderful YouTube video series. You've got the images, high resolution, you pan over the images, you've got your narrator with a nice voice telling the story, you've got your scrolling caption to put it into other languages, English, French, German. What a great, great thing that would be. Not going to happen tomorrow, sorry. And advertising. Advertising for this publisher, other things they are doing. We have Edo Hyakkei. Oh, that's this one. Soga Monogatari. That's advertising for this book itself. Okay, there we have it. Thanks. I can't bring you much more information on it than that, but just a casual glimpse of a small item in our collection. One day, somewhere down the line, we will get that scanned and online, but it's not going to happen anywhere soon. It's action. We've got a busy weekend coming up in the shop. There's a bunch of us. It'll be Sadako-san and Nakazawa-san and Wakane-san. And me sitting in. Okay, thanks very much. I am going to get out of here, get my cup of coffee for the morning, and then get to work. Thanks very much, and I'll see you Monday. And it will probably be color separations on the next Kyoto Journey print, because Kawasaki-san, our carver, is waiting for those. That's probably going to be Monday's content. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in a couple of days.